kunja bihari.
The following is a class on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, Madhya Leela, 22nd chapter, text 100, by His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami, recorded on 27th June 1990 in Montreal, Canada.
Gopi jana balabha Varadhari.
So we're going to discuss Madhya Leela, chapter 22, text 100. ānukūlyasya saṅkalpaḥ prātikūlyasya varjanam rakṣiṣyati viśvāso goptṛtve varaṇaṁ tathā ātma-nikṣepa-kārpaṇye ṣaḍ-vidhā śaraṇāgatiḥ. The 6 divisions of surrender are the acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service, the rejection of unfavorable things, the conviction that Kṛṣṇa will give protection, the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master, full surrender and humility. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One who is fully surrendered to qualify with the 6 following characteristics, the devotee has to accept everything that is favorable for the rendering of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He must reject everything unfavorable to the Lord's service. This is also called renunciation. A devotee must be firmly convinced that Kṛṣṇa will give him protection. No one else can actually give one protection, and being firmly convinced of this is called faith. This kind of faith is different from the faith of an impersonalist who wants to merge into the Brahman effulgence in order to benefit by cessation or repeated birth and death. A devotee wants to remain always in the Lord's service. In this way, Kṛṣṇa is merciful to his devotee and gives him all protection from the dangers found on the path of devotional service. The devotee should accept Kṛṣṇa as the supreme maintainer and master. He should not think that he is being protected by a demigod. He should depend only on Kṛṣṇa, considering him the only protector. The devotee must be firmly convinced that within the 3 worlds, he has no protector or maintainer other than Kṛṣṇa. Self-surrender means remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. The devotee is completely dependent on Kṛṣṇa, and he acts and thinks as Kṛṣṇa desires. The devotee is meek and humble, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas am I to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Situated in everyone's heart, Kṛṣṇa deals differently according to the living entity's position. The living entity's position is to be under the protection of the illusory energy, or under Kṛṣṇa's personal protection. When a living entity is fully surrendered, he's under the direct protection of Kṛṣṇa, and Kṛṣṇa gives him all intelligence by which he can advance in spiritual realization. The non-devotees, however, being under the protection of the illusory energy, increasingly forgets his relationship with Kṛṣṇa. Sometimes it is asked how Kṛṣṇa causes one to forget. Kṛṣṇa causes his devotee to forget material activities. And through the agency of Maya, Kṛṣṇa causes the non-devotees to forget his devotional service to the Lord. This is called apohana. Om jnana thivanandasya jnananjana shalakya chakshur militanyena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Shri chaitanya manovistam sthapitam yena bhutale swayam rupa kadamayam dadati swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta-padakamnan Shri Gurun Vaishnavanascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tham Sajevam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare ānukūlyasya saṅkalpaḥ prātikūlyasya varjanam rakṣiṣyati viśvāso goptṛtve varaṇaṁ tathā ātma-nikṣepa-kārpaṇye ṣaḍ-vidhā śaraṇa-āgatiḥ. So, this 22nd chapter of the Madhya Leela is one of the most important chapters of the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because in this chapter, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very elaborately explains to Rupa Goswami regarding the various steps that one should take in order to succeed on the spiritual path. Today we are going to discuss the 6 factors which Rupa Goswami said, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, are necessary for spiritual advancement. And starting tomorrow, we will discuss with the various items which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has listed to Rupa Goswami. I will give a little background to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. We must not forget that Rupa and Sanatana were not ordinary individuals. 500 years ago, the United States of America was not the richest country on the planet. 500 years ago, the richest country on the planet was India. And just like in your country of Canada, you have different provinces. In America, they have states. And in the Soviet Union, they have republics. So in India also, there were different kingdoms. And the richest kingdom at that time was the kingdom of Bengal. The kingdom of Bengal was the richest kingdom in India some 500 years ago. And those who were responsible for running this kingdom of Bengal were Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Because the king was only interested in traveling and conquering other territories. He was not interested in doing any administration at all. The responsibility for the administration was left entirely in the hands of these 2 brothers. And when Rupa and Sanatana met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they realized that they were wasting their valuable human life, and hence Rupa Goswami immediately resigned from government service, but Sanatana did not immediately resign. Instead, Sanatana, he went on sending sick reports to the king. He told the king that he was very sick. And actually, Sanatana Goswami had obtained the services of 30 brahmanas. And along with 30 brahmanas, he was studying all the revealed scriptures. And the king, after some time, he got very suspicious about Sanatana's illness. So he sent his doctor, who broke into Sanatana's house. And there he saw Sanatana, instead of lying on the bed, he was studying all the scriptures, surrounded by 30 brahmanas. And then the king had Sanatana imprisoned, and Sanatana was able to escape from the prison because he had a lot of influence over the employees. After all, he was like the prime minister of that kingdom. So he told the jailkeeper, who was a Muslim, that he can just tell the king that I went to pass toll in the morning and I ran away. I jumped in the Ganges. So Sanatana Goswami was able to escape from the prison And on the way that he was traveling, he stopped in a hotel. But just like you have these motels on the highways these days, so they also had motels in those days. But the proprietor of the motel, if you want to call it, he had with him an astrologer. And every time somebody would come in, the astrologer would calculate how rich this person was. And if the person was rich, they would make a plan to rob him or even kill him. So Sanatana Goswami had with him one of his servants. And Sanatana was not aware that actually this servant was carrying some gold coins with him. But as soon as Sanatana Goswami checked into the reception, the astrologer could calculate that this tourist, he's carrying a lot of gold with him. So he told the proprietor of the hotel that this man is a very rich man. So the hotel proprietor, he was being extra courteous to Sanatana. Sanatana, however, because he was experienced in government service and also in diplomacy, Sanatana was very suspicious as to why is this man being so courteous to me. And then Sanatana asked his servant, "Are you carrying anything valuable with you by any chance?" And the servant said, "Yes, I'm carrying these gold coins." 7 gold coins. Actually, he was carrying 8. And then Sanatana on his own offered the gold coin to the proprietor of the hotel. And the proprietor confessed that if he would not have offered these gold coins, he would have killed him in the night. So, I don't want to distract everyone. So then, the proprietor, he helped Sanatana Goswami go through the difficult routes, and eventually Sanatana Goswami met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Banaras. So, these instructions about the process of devotional service are very, very important. So these instructions were given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. So in this verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is talking about 6 principles of surrender. The first principle of surrender is ānukūlyasya saṅkalpaḥ. Ānukūlyasya. Ānukūlyasya means that which is of assistance. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, one should accept whatever is favorable for spiritual advancement. Just like a businessman. A businessman is trained to accept whatever is favorable for making profit, isn't it? A businessman is trained only accept such a contract that will give you profit. If you go to a businessman and you ask him to do something on which he can't make a profit, he will not do it. Is that right, Mohan? Okay, he's our auditor. So, similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, one must accept what is favorable for executing devotional service. And along with that, the natural point will be prātikūlyasya varjanam. Prātikūlyasya. Now, prātikūlyasya means the opposite of ānukūlyasya. Ānukūlyasya means that which is favorable. And prātikūlyasya means that which is unfavorable. So, one should accept everything favorable for devotional service, and one should reject everything unfavorable. So what does this mean in practical terms? In practical terminology, what this means is this. We should arrange our life in such a way that we can also execute devotional service. We should not arrange our life in such a manner that I cannot execute devotional service. If, for example, I have to, work in such a manner that I have to work so hard that I get no time for fulfilling my spiritual responsibilities, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, give up those activities. We have to have the determination that I'm only going to accept what is favorable for spiritual advancement and what is unfavorable for spiritual advancement, I will reject at any cost. So, this should be the guiding principle for every devotee. If we find that by doing a particular service or by being in a particular position, our devotional advancement or devotional activities are being affected, then we should not engage in that activities. So if this is the guiding principle, that I accept everything favorable and I reject everything favorable, then the devotee will be able to stay on the spiritual path. Then a devotee must be fully convinced that Kṛṣṇa will give him protection. As long as one is in the material world, the material mind is always trying to bewilder the living entity. The material mind is trying to make one believe that he does not have to take shelter of Kṛṣṇa. He does not have to take shelter of the process of devotional service. And by some material arrangement, he will be able to get his protection. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, the devotee must have firm conviction that my Lord will definitely protect me. This does not mean that a devotee does not have to face difficult encounters. Kṛṣṇa says in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, please declare to the world that my devotee will never perish. Kantya pratijanehi na me bhakta pranashyati. So this verse of the Gita is in support of this third point which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has mentioned. So Kṛṣṇa tells Arjuna, please declare to the world that my devotee will never be destroyed. Now this does not mean that the devotee will not have to struggle, or the devotee will not have to face hardship, or that the devotee may not fall sick, or a devotee may not have to cross over difficult periods. What this means is that in all situations the devotee knows that whatever is happening by the grace of the Lord. And in all situations, Kṛṣṇa is the ultimate controller. So if Kṛṣṇa wants me to go through some difficulty, I deserve it. I deserve something many, many times more serious. But my Lord is so kind that He has reduced the suffering due to me. So the devotee is protected by the Lord, even if it is a situation where the Lord may have to break His own personal promise. Just like, for example, before the battle of Kurukshetra commenced. Before the battle of Kurukshetra commenced, Kṛṣṇa had given an undertaking to the two opposing parties that I will not interfere in this battle. So the battle of Kurukshetra had progressed for many days, and Duryodhan, the greedy son of Dhritarashtra, he was witnessing that though so many soldiers were dying, the Pandavas were all alive. And obviously if the Pandavas would have survived the battle, then there's no way that Duryodhan could achieve his material desire to become the king of the kingdom, isn't it? So Duryodhan was very upset, and he was mystified by the fact that even though his army had all the famous soldiers, his army had all the big weapons, still the Pandavas were all alive. So Duryodhan, he went to, whom did he go to? He went to Bhismadev. And Duryodhan told Bhismadev, why are you being soft on these Pandavas? You're a Kshatriya. You're the greatest warrior ever to appear on this planet. Why is it that the Pandavas still haven't died? I think that you're being very partial to the Pandavas and you're not being loyal to me. So Duryodhan was doubting Bhismadev's loyalty to him, and he accused him of being soft on the Pandavas. Bhismadev, however, thou at heart, he wanted to see Yudhishthira Maharaj installed on the throne. Thou in his heart he knew that Duryodhana was wrong. Still, he was fighting on the side of Duryodhana. And being a very famous warrior and a Kshatriya, his professional honor was very important to him. So then Bhismadev decided, okay, now Duryodhana is chastising me, so he made 5 very sharp arrows. And he was hiding those arrows in his tent in the night with the intention of using the arrows the next day on the battle. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought on religious principles, as we know. That means that the battle was only fought during the daytime. And during the evening time, the two armies would eat together, even play together. And in the morning time, in the battle time, they would go back to their respective positions and start to shoot. It's not like the present-day wars where you attack in the night when people are sleeping and when you kill everyone, whether it's an old man, a young man, or an old lady, isn't it? So it was fought, therefore, on religious grounds. So Arjuna, however, was Krishna's friend. And Kṛṣṇa is in everyone's heart. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hirdeshara Arjuna tiṣṭhati. So Kṛṣṇa had intimated to Arjuna that Bhismadev has made 5 very sharp arrows that he plans to use against the Pandavas tomorrow. So when everybody was sleeping in the night, Arjuna quietly went to the tent where the arrows were hidden and he stole the arrows. So next morning, when Bhismadev discovered that the 5 arrows were missing, he knew it was Arjuna's trick, because nobody else would have known where these arrows were. Bhismadev had hidden them. But Bhismadev also was a devotee of Kṛṣṇa. So he knew in the core of his heart that the Pandavas are going to win. And he knew that it was Kṛṣṇa who told Arjuna where the arrows were. So next morning, Bhismadev resolved that he was going to fight in such a manner either Kṛṣṇa would have to break his promise or Arjuna was going to die on the battlefield. Now what was his promise? His promise was that I will not take part in the battle. Now, Bhismadev actually wanted to convey a message to the world. The message that Bhismadev was trying to convey was that a devotee of Kṛṣṇa is always protected by Kṛṣṇa, even if it means that Kṛṣṇa has to break his promise. Therefore, Bhismadev fought so valiantly the next day on the battlefield that Kṛṣṇa, the chariot driver of Arjuna, could say that now my devotee Arjuna, his life is in great danger. And then, when Kṛṣṇa saw that Arjuna's life was being threatened by Bhismadev's anger, because Bhismadev was a far stronger and famous warrior than Arjuna. So when Kṛṣṇa saw that Arjuna's life was in danger, he ran from his chariot. And while running from his chariot, even his cloth dropped from his body. The top of he had a cloth on his body. It dropped. And then he released his Sudarshan Chakra, and thereby he protected Arjuna from Bhismadev's anger. So when Bhismadev saw Kṛṣṇa break his promise to protect Arjuna, he said, now my mission of life has been successful. Because he wanted to prove to the world that Kṛṣṇa will go to any extent to protect his devotee. So this Bhismadev, he was leaving his body lying on a bed of arrows, and because he was always meditating on Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa along with Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas, they all came on his bedside. And Bhismadev had the great fortune of leaving his body while meditating at the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa. So I gave you this example to show that a devotee may be put into a difficult position, but ultimately the devotee is always protected by Kṛṣṇa. So this we must understand, that Kṛṣṇa will always protect his devotee. Just like Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was always chanting the holy name, as we know. And in that cave where he was chanting, there was also a snake living over there. Now Haridas, of course, was totally undisturbed by the presence of the snake. But the others who were coming to visit Haridas, they were pressuring Haridas, please move from here, that snake may bite you one day. So Haridas, just to oblige the visitors who were telling him this, he said, okay, I'll move. But then, before Haridas actually moved, the snake on its own got out of the tent and went away to another location. So there's so many stories, I can just go on and on. But the point that we want to make is, Kṛṣṇa protects his devotee. So it is not that when we are in a difficult position, or when we have to face the test of Kṛṣṇa, we say, oh, maybe I should take to some other religious process. Maybe Kṛṣṇa is not powerful enough, I need somebody else who can protect me. Or the devotee doesn't think, I will worship Kṛṣṇa, but I will also worship the demigods. Why? Because I don't think Kṛṣṇa can fulfill all my material desires. So I need the help of demigods also for complete protection. Therefore, one of the 10 offenses is what? To consider demigods to be equal to or independent of the Supreme Lord. So we do not think the demigods are equal to or independent of the Supreme Lord. So we must have full faith that Kṛṣṇa will give me protection. But how does that faith come? That faith comes with the execution of devotional service. If you execute devotional service, then that faith will come. But if you don't execute devotional principles, then how will you develop that faith? Just like that comes by the execution of spiritual principles. Then the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master. So the devotee must accept Kṛṣṇa as a supreme maintainer and master. And he must not think that some other material arrangement or the demigods are going to give me protection. The devotee is fully convinced that within the three worlds, nobody else but Kṛṣṇa can give me protection. Ekala Ishwar Kṛṣṇa ātma-nikṣepa-kārpaṇye. Kṛṣṇa, he is the only master, and all others are his. What are all others? Servants. So Kṛṣṇa is the only master, and all others are his servants. So this conviction must be there. Why is it we only chant Hare Krishna mantra? Because the Hare Krishna mantra is the Maha Mantra, and by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, we are automatically discharging all our obligations towards the demigods, towards our ancestors, and towards everybody else that you can't even possibly imagine. Sometimes when devotees are coming to Krishna conscious movement, they get pressurized from their family, etc. The family members say, oh, we educated you for so long, now you should take care of us. Why are you becoming a sadhu? Why are you going and chanting Hare Krishna? Why do you want to go and live in the temple? But if we want to discharge our responsibilities, or if we want to clear our debts off, there's so many entities that we have obligations to. You have the obligation to the sun god, isn't it? Because the sun god is giving you light. Do you think you could have survived without getting rays, sunlight from the sun? You have your obligation to the moon god, because the moon is giving you light in the night, and the moon is nourishing the vegetables. Without the rays of the moon, the vegetables would never give you the strength. They could never have the nourishment that they have. You have your obligation to the demigod in charge of air. He's giving you air. When you use the fan or the air conditioner or the heater, don't you get an electric bill at the end of the month? Isn't it? We get an electric bill, isn't it? So you get an electric bill when you use these fans for 1 hour a day or whatever. And day by day the energy bill is increasing, isn't it? So, what about paying your bill to the demigod in charge of air? So we have so many debts to pay. Who will you pay? And Indra, he is giving you rain. The only thing you have an obligation to him, if there was no rainfall, you'll have no water to drink, no food to eat. So we have debts to so many entities. How are you going to calculate who you owe how much? Therefore, in one stroke, by the stroke of Krishna consciousness, you can discharge your obligation to everyone. Just like the Bhagavatam says in the 4th canto, by providing food to the stomach, the different parts of the body get strengthened. By watering the root of the tree, the different branches and leaves get nourished. Similarly, by surrendering to Kṛṣṇa, one discharges one's obligations towards all the demigods, living entities, etc. Therefore, it is said, one who has taken shelter of Kṛṣṇa, he automatically discharges all his so-called social and religious obligations to everyone. Because when you serve Kṛṣṇa, you are engaged in the most auspicious path. And one who serves Kṛṣṇa, he by his pure devotion can even take his relatives back to Godhead. Just like after Lord Nrsimha-dev had killed Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad Maharaj, the son of Hiranyakashipu, approached the Lord and said, "My dear Lord, even though my father was a demon, still I want to pray to you that he may please be liberated." And the Lord said, "Ye do not have to worry. He's already liberated." Dhruva Maharaj, by his austerity, he was able to go back to Godhead. But the Lord sent a special plane to also bring his mother back to Godhead. Isn't it? So, this is the power of one's devotion to Kṛṣṇa. But that devotion has to be genuine. That devotion has to be accompanied by spiritual discipline. That devotion has to be accompanied by sacrifices. You cannot have devotion to Kṛṣṇa without any sacrifices. Just like in the English language they say, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. Isn't it? You have a very nice cake. You want to keep staring at it. But then your tongue says, "Come on, I want to eat it." So you want the cake and you want to eat it. That's not possible. So you can't have Kṛṣṇa and Maya at the same time. If you want to have Kṛṣṇa, you have to pay the price. Otherwise you cannot get Kṛṣṇa. See the price that Prahlad Maharaj paid. Therefore Rupa Goswami has told us, what does he tell us? Kṛṣṇa bhakti rasa bhavita kriyatam yadi kathopi labhate. My dear honorable friend, whatever price that you may have to pay in order to become Kṛṣṇa conscious, please pay that price. Don't bargain. Don't bargain. Just pay the price. Just like you go to a Hindu or a Jewish store, you try to bargain. So, Rupa Goswami says, don't bargain. Just pay the price. And if you pay the price, then you will get genuine love of God. Then, the 5th principle is self-surrender. Self-surrender means, as Prabhupada explains in the purport, to understand that one's desires and wishes are not independent of Kṛṣṇa. Sometimes it is said a devotee is desireless. Now being desireless doesn't mean the devotee's mind goes to sleep all the time. It doesn't mean that he has an inactive brain. The devotee has a very, very active brain. But his brain is always working to achieve harmony with Kṛṣṇa's desires. So what does it mean to be in harmony with Kṛṣṇa's desires and the spiritual master's desires? To desire nothing but what they desire. So, a devotee is also meditating. A devotee is also thinking. Prabhupada was always thinking how Kṛṣṇa consciousness can be exploded all over the planet. He was always thinking how we can go and meet this person, that person, how we can think of some new technique by which we can expand Kṛṣṇa consciousness. So, self-surrender means you think, but you think about Kṛṣṇa. And you think about how Kṛṣṇa can be served more and more. We have in the Bhagavatam a very good example of Bali Maharaj and Vamandev. Bali Maharaj was the king of the planet. Vamandev was the incarnation of the Lord, who appeared as a very beautiful beggar. So the beautiful beggar Vamandev came to the house of Bali Maharaj And Bali Maharaj was a very generous, compassionate king. This is the nature of a devotee. A devotee is very generous and very compassionate. He's not mean. So Bali Maharaj, when he saw the beautiful, handsome beggar, he said, "Beggar, you're so handsome. What can I offer you?" And the beggar said, "Just give me enough land where I can keep 3 footsteps." So Bali Maharaj said, "This is crazy. You don't go to a rich man and you tell him, 'Please give me just some dirt.' You go to a rich man and ask him for something big, isn't it? Like when you go out collecting from the Indians, you don't go to a rich man and say, 'Please give me just 50 cents donation.' You hit him up for a big donation, isn't it?" So Bali Maharaj said, "Come on, ask me for something more." Vaman said, "No, that's enough." So, with his first footstep, Vamandev covered the entire earth. Just imagine. With his second footstep, he covered everything from the earth till the sky. You know, the materialists are very proud of their achievements. So bring a materialist who can expand his legs to such a limit that he can cover the whole universe. Isn't it? There's so many people who claim they are avatars of God these days, isn't it? Just like I was telling you about that one guru who one day plays the role of Kṛṣṇa, one day plays the role of Rama. So there's so many people who claim they are God. So you tell them, let's see how far you can expand your footstep. Isn't it? It's not going to be more than 10 feet the most. So anyway, Bali Maharaj was able to cover the whole universe. And with the second footstep, he took it right from the earth to the sky. So now, wait to keep the third footstep. So because in the first 2 footsteps, Bali Maharaj did not surrender himself. He just surrendered his material possessions, his kingdom. But in the third footstep, he said, "Oh, keep it on my head." He surrendered himself also. This is known as ātma-nikṣepa-kārpaṇye. Śravanam, kirtanam, Vishnu, svarnam, padasevanam, āchanam, vandyam, dasyam, sakhyam, ātma-nikṣepa-kārpaṇye. Ātma-nikṣepa-kārpaṇye means complete surrender. So, this is the point that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is making. The Lord as one's guardian or master. So, ātma-nikṣepa-kārpaṇye, complete surrender. Just like Thakur Bhakti Vinod in his prayer has said, "Manasa deha geha yo kichur mora, arpilam tuya pade nanda kishora." He says, "My dear Lord, I place everything at your lotus feet. My wife, my children, my house, my possessions, and myself. All this, my mind, my body, my words, I place at your lotus feet." So this is ātma-nikṣepa-kārpaṇye, and this is the standard of devotion that the Kṛṣṇa conscious movement is teaching. The Kṛṣṇa conscious movement is not teaching anything else but complete surrender to the Lord. Because this is what the Lord is demanding. When the Lord says, "Sarva dharmam paritajya mam ekam chanamaja aham tvam sarva papaya bhayo mokshami masachaha," there cannot be any doubt about what the Lord is asking. So, ātma-nikṣepa-kārpaṇye. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained that one must accept the Lord as one's guardian or master. This is known as full surrender. Then, humility. One must be meek and humble. Humility is very necessary for spiritual advancement. You cannot be very, very proud and still hope to succeed spiritually. It's not possible. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he instructed his followers to write volumes of books. Isn't it? Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, they wrote volumes of books. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself wrote only 8 verses. And in these 8 verses, one whole verse is devoted to what? The principle of humility and meekness. Tinadapi sunitena tarurapi saishnuna manina manadena kirtanadi sadahari. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in instructing Rupa Goswami, has said, one must be humble and meek. So our philosophy is what? Being servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. Dasa, 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 dasa. This is our philosophy. We don't go directly to Kṛṣṇa. We go to Kṛṣṇa by serving the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. That is how we go to Kṛṣṇa. One who says, Kṛṣṇa says, one who says that he is my devotee, he is not my devotee. Isn't it? But one who says that he is a devotee of a devotee, he is my devotee. So, humility must be there. Humility, Prabhupada explained, is the tonic for developing love of God. So humility doesn't mean that you externally speak very softly, say Prabhuji, Prabhuji, and in your mind, internally, you're just thinking how right you are, how everybody else is wrong. Humility means that you genuinely offer respects to everyone. You genuinely think that others also know, and you generally be in the mood of serving others. Just like this morning I said, Prabhupada gave us a definition of humility, a lamb at home and a lion outside. So at home, in dealing with all the Vaishnavas, we are everybody's servant. To be a servant of a Vaishnava is a bigger privilege than to be a master of a Vaishnava. Because the privilege to serve a Vaishnava is obtained only after millions and millions of lifetimes. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, one must become more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prejudice. One must consider oneself to be lower than the blade of grass. So this is humility. This point of humility and meekness is mentioned in innumerable places in the Bhagavatam. And if we genuinely try to develop humility, then there will be the development of love of God. So these 6 principles of surrender that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has talked about should not be ignored. I'm sure we've all heard about these before, but we must remember them, remind ourselves again and again about the importance of these 6 factors, and make the necessary corrections so that we stay on the right track and we can go on advancing on the path of devotional service. Hare Krishna.